talk of Spain still, 24 hours after that 3-3 draw between Barca and Inter. Here are some of the Spanish headlines that we saw. Mundo Deportivo going with virtual KO. Sport alive miraculously. Marca on the brink of the annual disaster. AS on the brink of disaster. So many talking points from what we saw last night at the Camp Nou. But I think the first one, just from a pure football perspective, it's just how bonkers it was.
Yes, it was. Well, I'll let you into a little secret. It's not that much of a secret, but I was writing a match report on this one.
Okay.
When you're a match reporter, the last thing you want is a game like this. And I will be honest, the last couple of minutes, I was shouting abuse at the pitch, basically asking them to stop this. Please stop changing the story every couple of minutes. It was a fantastically enjoyable game, partly made better, of course, by the fact that the defending was absolutely awful. But It was really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, it was like if you didn't have a horse in the race, it was thoroughly entertaining. You do have a horse in the race, obviously, Luis, as an ex-Barcelona player. Where did it go so wrong yesterday?
I think starting from when you are not clinical, you don't score the chances that you're going to have. That's a big problem. When you allow Inter to start running to the spaces and you start making mistakes at the back. I think the Barcelona had a plan. I think it was working well. I think we saw a very good Barcelona for many minutes. But in the moment that you allow this Inter to make those transitions, those quick transitions, you are not ready for that. Players from Barcelona yesterday, we know that Piqué is not as quick as he was before. He's always in the right position, but sometimes in contact he's going to suffer. Eric Garcia had trouble before in this kind of situation when it's 1v1 situations, and it wasn't the best moment for them last night. And Barcelona scored the goals, but conceded so many, and that's a big problem for them.
What's it like being involved in a match like that, where you just get feeling that everything just seems to be out of control? Because you think the experience that's on that pitch, Lewandowski, Busquets, Piqué as well, you imagine them to come together and calm everyone down, but they look completely lost as well almost.
Yeah, it's a lot on the stage, and they know the club is under pressure, not the players, not everybody's under pressure, because they know how important it is to continue in Champions League. Because of the club, because of the confidence of the players, of the manager, and because of the future of the club. Yeah. And I'm talking about the financial problems that Barcelona have. So at the end, everything is right there in one game. And when the things are going in the right direction, you score the first goal, so you think, okay, we're done. But it's not done until the referee whistles the last one. So I think it was a mess of a roller coaster of feelings, and at the end, it couldn't be the best way for Barcelona.
Could you taste it in the stands, kind of that nervous energy?
Yeah. Definitely. And I think one of the things that happened was that when Barcelona scored the first goal, you could actually see Xavi immediately saying, okay, now is the time when we take some of the urgency out of this game. Because, of course, Barcelona knew that they had to win. And, in fact, Xavi had said pre-game they didn't just have to win 1-0, they had to win 2-0 because the head-to-head record would likely be quite decisive. And so they go 1-0 up. And what you felt then was, okay, they've got that to that first stage that allows them to now play the rest of the game with a little bit more calmness, a little bit more control. They score it 5 minutes before half-time. Of course, they then concede 5 minutes after. And from that point on, any sense of trying to control the game is completely gone. And you absolutely, you could feel it, yes.
What's interesting, what you mentioned, Luis, obviously, is the financial problems. We hear players say, look, we just go out on the pitch and we perform. But it's there. It's like in their minds.
Yes, of course, because at the end, it's not that they think about in that moment, but the pressure is there. Because when you go there, everybody's talking about this is a final. This is the game that we need to win. And you don't think about the money that the club have happened or has got there or the levers. No one talks about that, but it's an extra pressure.
Right.
And you got 90,000 people that is expecting you to deliver a good result. And millions around the world just talking about this Barcelona need to win that one. And that's a pressure that the players feel. And we cannot forget that there are a lot of young players involved in this game. We are talking about Pedri, about Gavi, about Eric Garcia, that they are so young. And this kind of situation, they are difficult to handle. And well, as you well mentioned, Piqué, these kind of players, that Busquets, that have been there for many times, they need to control the situation. And you can see that they control a little bit, but the situation, I think, was overwhelming.
Xavi, being Xavi, has got money in the bank, obviously. But a lot of questions we've seen in the news over the last 24 hours, questioning his substitutions, his tactics, whether or not he can actually handle these really big matches.
Yeah, I think the first thing I think in a way that's important is to try and take a step back from this game as a single game. Because, of course, the overall context of this is the team that's definitely improved, particularly since the winter window last year. that's gone into the league season and played really, really well, that's only conceded 1 goal all season, that's top of the table, and that had gone into the Champions League game. And I think Xavi is entitled to say this, and he said it yesterday, and played quite well in Milan. And played quite well in Munich, and were perhaps a little unfortunate not to win those games. And in a way, what happened last night was a consequence of those 2 games, of the fact that they're in a difficult position. And so I think some of the chaos comes from that. That said, there are some broader questions, which is how exactly do they want to set up? That some of the things that Xavi talks about, and of course we know that he's absolutely committed to what we would probably now refer to as a kind of a Cruyff or Guardiola identity, a Barcelona identity. But we don't always see the evidence of that.
Right.
So, for example, there were moments yesterday, and one of the things that really struck me was that there were moments yesterday when, if you like, the first stage of the attack, the part that's supposed to be about, if you like, the vision and the intelligence, wasn't going through Pedri, who's the player who can best do that. It was going directly to Dembélé. Now, Dembélé does lots of things really well, but he doesn't necessarily do, if you like, how would I describe it? The kind of the conceptual part of the game.
Yeah,
as well.
decision making
exactly.
is not the best.
And it felt a little bit to me like there's still a slight disconnect between the idea of what you're trying to achieve and what we're actually seeing on the pitch.
And let's get to the $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, however much it is. Question: how much trouble are they in?
Right. Okay. So to answer that, I suppose we need to define what we mean by trouble. Okay, so I think there's a difference between the economic side of it, and obviously part of what you're asking is definitely that, as you've said, $100 million question, whatever. Yeah. The calculations suggest that getting knocked out of the Champions League at this point could be around about a 25 million euro impact in terms of the direct impact, in terms of what you lose through TV rights, what you lose through potential ticketing and everything that goes with matchday revenue. Because bear in mind, there were 92,000 people in the Camp Nou yesterday. That means that the next Champions League game that would have been, for argument's sake, 92 again, or 95 or 85, doesn't happen. The one after that doesn't happen if you'd continue to progress. Now, will you get good attendances in the Europa League? Probably, but probably not quite as good.
Especially if Frankfurt turn up.
Exactly. The ticket prices won't be quite so high. The TV rights obviously are not so high. Now, some of it is mitigated by continuing in the Europa League. But I think there's another element to this, which is a kind of an emotional side to this, and the sense that what Barcelona did in the summer was take a gamble, was to say, right, we do this now, we know it's slightly risky, we know we're denying ourselves income in the future because, of course, what we've done is sell off future assets. But that is about kick-starting this whole process. It's about this team being strong and competitive now. To use Laporta's own words, it's about the virtuous cycle. Okay. The trouble is that cycle's just broken. Now, it's not broken entirely, of course it's not, because they've got the Europa League, because they're performing well in La Liga, because this team is emerging, and it will get better. But I think emotionally, the impact's really, really big.
And that affects the players, the fans, the whole city.
Yeah, the whole city. And Busquets mentioning, yeah, we are going to be affected for El Clásico, and that's something that no one wants to hear from a player perspective, you know. So at the end, it's not easy to face this situation, but it's not all lost. I mean, we are going to say that, yeah, Champions League is a massive thing. They're going to probably struggle in the coming months, but definitely is going to mark the way if they are doing and keeping consistency in La Liga.
We've been here before, haven't we?
Yeah,
this is what it was all about. This is what the summer was about, so you don't get embarrassed and get knocked out of the group stages again.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that it's very important that the reaction is straight away that Barcelona against Real Madrid at this weekend has to be a must win for the mentally, for the crowd, for everybody surrounding Barcelona, because if not, definitely it could be devastated.
It could be the perfect fixture for Barcelona.
In a way,
or the worst one.
Or the worst one.
Yeah, I think that's it, and they have to cling to the idea that this can be the perfect one. Now, you look at this month as well, and this was always going to be a difficult month. Yeah. And to be honest, from a pessimistic point of view, you could look at this month and think, wow, there's a chance that Barcelona's season is finished by the end of October. Now, obviously, that's a very pessimistic view of it, but you've got Real Madrid, you've got Inter, you've got Bayern, you've got Athletic, you've got Villarreal, I believe. You've got a whole series of really difficult fixtures in October, at the same time as which Real Madrid have got a lot of games, but slightly more comfortable ones, and it's problematic for them.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.